Arthur Moats came out with a pretty big prediction about the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver core. He obviously says that Deontay Johnson and George Pickens are going to be wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. But that wide receiver 3, I think many assume, is going to be Allen Robinson at the start of the season. He'll start in the slot. Moats thinks it'll be differently. Quote, we know, and this comes from the Arthur Moats experience with him and Deke. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. We all know two of these dudes already, Pickens and Deontay. Calvin's the third. That's how I look at it. Allen Robinson is already like one of these two. Calvin is different than these two. I'm talking just personnel wise, coaching wise. If I want to call something crazy on a passing situation, I want that Calvin Austin out there without Allen Robinson personally. That's what Mode says. Do you think that, I mean, it makes some sense. You know, you're looking at who George Pickens is. You're looking at who Deontay Johnson is. I don't think you could match Calvin Austin with anybody. I don't think you could compare Calvin Austin to anybody on an NFL field and say, oh, this is pretty much the same guy as that. So he does bring that different level of play. Do you think that there's some ground behind that? You think there's a possibility Calvin Austin finds his way into that starting slot role over Allen Robinson?
Man, I would be kind of surprised if that's how it played out week 1. I mean, if we're talking about is Calvin Austin going to outsnap Allen Robinson, I personally would be surprised about that. And just for a couple of reasons, I do see where Moats, I didn't watch the video, but I see where he could potentially be coming from, right? You get the, you get the speed element with Austin. Austin's a completely different skill set type. He's that hyper elusive, agile speedster, really small build, good after the catch. And then you've got Robinson, who's, more of a bigger body possession, kind of high point threat. Veteran savvy route runner, things like that. So I think that those guys are completely different. And I see what he's coming from in terms of, the Steelers didn't create a lot of explosive plays on offense last year. So getting Calvin Austin in the mix, because he has the speed and that breakaway potential to just literally get in the lineup and pop a big play as soon as he touches the ball. But I don't think that that's going to play out in terms of if he's going to outsnap Allen Robinson. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe Calvin is healthy through, preseason and training camp. And he's, it happens like every year. I feel like you get a player in the summer who almost forces the team to play them. Jalen Warren was like this last year. He was so good. He went from being, not thought of at all to a relatively big part of the Steelers offense as the running back too. Maybe Calvin does that. I would be kind of surprised if he outsnapped Allen Robinson early on.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it fits well, but I think that the Steelers offense isn't going to be like a snap based anything. Deontay Johnson and George Pickens will obviously take more snaps than most people, but I think the rest of that group, if it's Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin, I would imagine Pat Freiermuth and Connor Hayward work their way in there as well. Maybe some Jalen Warren. I think all that's just going to be a blend. It'll be a who's the best option right now. Who could we use in this play? Who could we use in that play? The Steelers are not a home run hitting type of team right now. And until proven otherwise, I'm not going to look at them as a team that's throwing the ball 60 yards down the field. Calvin Austin is going to work well within the mix. Allen Robinson is going to work well within the mix. There's a lot of people talking about the veteran presence. I think that helps as well. But I think that Deontay at this point is a veteran. He's a leader of that room. That's not going to change. But I do think that Allen Robinson does help that just consistent catch situation. You know what I mean? Like that's a very reliable pair of hands for Kenny Pickett to have. But do I think that, week 1, I think I'm with you. Like, you're looking at Allen Robinson just because Allen Robinson came in here as a starter. And unless he loses that job, you know what I mean? Calvin Austin's not going to take it away from him. Do you think there's a point where that change? I feel like at some point that does change, that hand will change to Calvin, if not this season, next season. Do you think that that's, in motion for mid-season, late in the season, to where the offense will evolve more to there?
I mean, it could potentially come to that. I think it's all about what A-Rob has left in the tank. I think just based on the little bit of, tape that I watched last year, I watched probably 3 to 4 full games. I think that Robinson has lost a step, but his game really isn't predicated on speed. And I actually think a move to the slot for him, maybe even full time, is a
Yeah.
good thing at this point of his career. He can really help you. There's one play in particular that I keep coming back to from last season that I saw, but Robinson is running. He's on the left side of the field, and he's running what the Shanahan McVay offense calls a swirl route, which is a
Yeah.
7-stop, and the defense is in cover 3. Robinson, runs, his 7-stop, and the defender's right in front of him, and they're playing zone coverage, and he has the veteran savvy to shift away from the coverage and make himself available for Matt Stafford. And I think that that's like the big key, especially if you're working in the slot. You have to be able to read multiple defenders. You have to be able to get yourself open and find that void in the coverage. And not saying that Calvin can't do that. It's just being an NFL receiver for however many years A-Rod's been in the league and playing at that high level where he was a number one guy. He understands how to make himself quarterback friendly. And that was the thing that I kept coming back to with Robinson's tape. Excellent with the ball in the air. He's always had fantastic hands. He's a detailed route runner, understands how to read multiple defenders in zone coverage. So, like I said, I think that Austin would have to prove that he can do some of those same things, at least at a comparable level, while also adding that speed element in order to, kind of overtake him. Now, next year is a completely different thing. A-Rob, I don't think he's on this team next year just because of his cap hit is just enormous. They would have to really work out some magic on the cap situation. But I think that Calvin can play a good part in this offense. I just don't know that he's going to be the guy that's going to go out there and play 80% of the snaps. I would personally be surprised if that happened.
No, I agree. And I like your point there about how Allen Robinson is, just like I said, a reliable, a veteran presence for Kenny Pickett, which is huge. That's the most important thing this offseason for anything with the Pittsburgh Steelers is to protect Kenny Pickett at all costs in his succession. And Allen Robinson plays a big role in that. I like that. And you think, at this point, Austin's, like I said, he's going to be involved. Everybody's going to be involved. I want to get to some questions here. Calvin Austin as a kick punt returner. We'll start with that one. You think that's a lock at this point? First off, do you think that the Steelers are gonna, no matter, let's put an over/under on it. Starting lineup, preseason games, 3 of them, kick returns by the number 1 kick and punt returner, or I guess kick returner on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Over/under amount of returns, 3.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's gonna be weird with the rule changes, right? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not really sure how important that's going to be. I'm interested to see how that plays out. I do think that Calvin is going to have he's going to be given every chance to win the kick returner and punt returner jobs. In terms of kick returns, I believe that he's definitely going to win that job. Calvin only returned, I think it was 20, 25 or 28, 29 kicks in college, but he took 2 of them to the house. So per Pro Football Focus, he also muffed a couple. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. Like we talked about last year with Gunner. I mean, everyone was really excited about him returning kicks, and then he goes and muffs a couple, and then Tom was like, "Yep, you're on the bench." That's the one way to lose your job as a special teamer. You can't turn the ball over. So I definitely think Austin has the explosiveness to do it. In training camp and stuff, he's definitely going to have every opportunity to win that job. I don't think any of us really are too enthusiastic about putting Gunner back there. So I think that's
who do you think would be the backup? Who do you think would be the real? Because I don't think Gunner's going to make this roster. Who do you think? Would be?
I know they're going to give
McFarland.
Well, I know that Jordan Byrd will get a chance.
Oh, Jordan Byrd will have an opportunity.
McFarland will be in the kick return mix. I'm not sure about returning punts.
Yeah, me too. I agree with that one. Jordan Byrd's a good one. That's a sleeper right there. That's a sleeper.
Jordan can move.
He's shifty. Really move. He's working with Calvin Austin, which I think is huge. I like Jordan. I think he's good. He was rather quiet at the end of minicamp, but I think that starts at training camp. You know what I mean? Like you put pads on, and it's no longer just like wrap up, and you see how shifty he could possibly be. I think that's when that's a good one. That's a good one. Jordan Byrd. He'd have to beat out Miles Boykin, Gunner, Des Fitzpatrick, maybe just to earn that final. Wide receiver.
It's tough to make the roster, man, as a specialist only, and that's basically what Jordan would be doing. But I think, like we say, every summer we see that one guy just come out of nowhere and force the Steelers to keep him or to play him, and Jordan's going to have the opportunity to do that. He's definitely going to get a lot of work on special teams.
Yeah, no doubt. Steven Sims did it last year. You know, he was not a player that was going to make this roster. Played a big part in that roster by the end of the season.